but we are Owens and Wickenhauser, and we are here to announce our filing of a lawsuit on behalf of the Zeta Phi chapter of the Sigma Nu fraternity against Councilwoman Barbara Van Auken, Andrew Rand, and Sid Ruckriegel for their actions that took place on September 19th and 20th, 2008. And I'd like to lay out some facts and explain to you why we filed this lawsuit, and then I'll open up the floor to questions, if you have any, for myself, my partners, or the president of Sigma Nu chapter here, Caleb Matheny. That's M-A-T-H-E-N-Y. So I'll just briefly start with the facts. On September 19th, 2008 at 11:38 p.m., Sergeant Nora Fales of the Bradley Police Department responded to a call from Bradley Dispatch of loud noise in an alleyway around 1300 West Fredonia. Sergeant Fales was assisting the Peoria Police at the time and looking for a robbery suspect. She was called off of that. She arrived approximately a couple minutes after that, and she walked around the front of the house, couldn't hear any noise. Then she walked around the side of the house, couldn't hear any noise, all the way into the back patio to where she finally heard faint talking and the faint sound of music. She reported in her report that she could only hear music from the patio area. Sergeant Fales explained the situation to the 10 to 12 members, and she told them the sounds were not excessive. However, to avoid any more problems, she asked everyone to go inside or to the front of the house to keep the noise down. And Sergeant Fales reported that they complied with her request. Now, in fact, the members actually shut all the back doors, turned down the music, and kept their voices down while moving to the front of the house. While at the house, before she left, Sergeant Fales received a message to call the Peoria Police Department. Sergeant Fales then cleared the call with Bradley Dispatch, and she left the house at 11:52 p.m. Now, at that moment, Sergeant Fales then called the Peoria Police Department, and they explained to her there was no complainant for the call. So the person that actually called this in did not give their name at the time. Immediately after getting off the phone with Peoria Police Department, Bradley Dispatch called Sergeant Fales again and said, hey, there's still another noise complaint. There's still noise going on that property. And that was at 11:52 to 11:56 p.m. Meanwhile, Officer William Merritt of the Bradley Police Department drove past the house when the noise was supposedly occurring, and he heard no noise, and that's what he reported. Now, 7 minutes later, at 12:03 a.m., Sergeant Fales was dispatched back to the Sigma Nu house again for people being loud in the alley side of the house, and again she found no noise. It was very quiet. She was actually trying to catch them in it. In talking with her, she said that she was kind of mad that they'd be back there making noise, but when she came back, they were not making noise. She drove around the front side of the house, right around here, and she heard no noise. Now, as far as the trespass is concerned, at approximately 12:15 a.m., Matt Singley, a member of the Sigma Nu fraternity, was standing right about there on the property, where he then saw 3 individuals walk up and step onto the steps. Matt Singley recognized the people, or recognized one of them, as Andrew Rand. From previous dealings with him, Matt Singley knew that Andrew Rand was not supposed to have any interaction with the Sigma Nu fraternity. There was a meeting, I believe a week earlier, that Andrew Rand was present at with Bradley officials and Sigma Nu members, and they advised him not to step onto the property. Matt Singley reports that he told the 3 people they could not enter onto the property. Mr. Singley notes that the 3 people seemed to have been drinking, especially Barbara Van Auken, who was reported to be highly intoxicated. That was Mr. Singley's impression of it at the time. They walked past Mr. Singley and proceeded to walk onto the property without permission. Mr. Singley again asked them to leave the property, but they did not comply. Barbara Van Auken, Sid Ruckriegel, and Andrew Rand walked up the steps and began berating the members right about here where the cameras are. Meanwhile, Matt Singley continued to ask them to step off the property repeatedly, and also reminded Andrew Rand that he was told numerous times by the university not to contact any member of Sigma Nu, and Mr. Rand should definitely not approach the house. Member Ben Johnson of Sigma Nu also asked the 3 to leave the property. Member Jacob Hodge also asked them to leave the property, and member Niall Martin also asked the 3 to leave the property. Barbara Van Auken, Sid Ruckriegel, and Andrew Rand stayed on the property and did not leave nor comply with the request to leave the members of Sigma Nu or their property. Barbara Van Auken began to name administrators at Bradley to scare the students, well, implying that she was attempting to scare the students into believing she had the authority to punish them through the university. She said she was going to call Gary Anna, which she did. She left him a voicemail message, and Gary Anna ended up actually calling Chief Bear or the police at Bradley PD to see if the matter was being resolved. Now, Barbara Van Auken then had trouble speaking in that she slurred her words. She said slearing instead of slurring, which you'll hear on the video once we do release it. Caleb Matheny, president of Sigma Nu, came outside, and Andrew Rand immediately introduced to Mr. Matheny, "This is Councilwoman Van Auken," as Caleb Matheny walked by here and approached the three people that were still not leaving the property. Meanwhile, Sergeant Fales was getting the call from to actually respond to Sigma Nu, and at 12:30, Bradley Dispatch reported from the call that there was an intoxicated woman on the property causing a problem and not leaving the property here. As Sergeant Fales arrived, the female approached the squad car. Well, as Sergeant Fales arrived, she reports that the female, who was Barbara Van Auken, approached her vehicle and said, "I'm Councilwoman Van Auken." Meanwhile, Officer Merritt of the Bradley Police Department arrived and reported that he saw Mr. Rand and Sid Ruckriegel standing approximately 20 feet on the property. Sergeant Fales reports that Miss Van Auken complained about the noise and wanted something done. Sergeant Fales explained to Miss Van Auken that she had responded already twice to the house that night, and she found there to be no problem or excessive noise. Sergeant Fales reports that Councilwoman Van Auken began to poke Sergeant Fales in the shoulder with her finger and proceeded to tell Sergeant Fales that Bradley Police aren't doing their job. Sergeant Fales told that Bradley Police aren't the real police, or actually, I'm sorry, Barbara Van Auken told Sergeant Fales that Bradley Police aren't the real police, and she had already contacted the shift lieutenant from Peoria Police, and he would be arriving soon. Councilwoman Van Auken then told Sergeant Fales that she had called a high-ranking administrative official at Bradley, who was presumably Gary Anna. Sergeant Fales then reports that Miss Van Auken began pointing her finger approximately 4 to 5 inches from Sergeant Fales' face and repeated a profanity that I can't say to you on camera. At all times, Sergeant Fales handled herself professionally and politely, even though she was ridiculed, assaulted, she was poked repeatedly, and she was impugned by Barbara Van Auken. Councilwoman Van Auken then continued to behave inappropriately, calling Bradley University Police Officer Merritt a jerk. Councilwoman Van Auken also threatened to have Mayor Artis on the scene. Councilwoman Van Auken also called Sergeant Fales a liar. She said, "You're a liar." Now, while Sergeant Fales was taking this inappropriate abuse, Officer Merritt was dealing with a trespassing call. He reports his observations of Barbara Van Auken as the following. She seemed to be lethargic. She had slurring in her speech. Some of her actions seemed to be over-exaggerated, and the smell of odor of an alcoholic beverage was coming from her breath. Officer Merritt asked Councilwoman Van Auken if she had been drinking. She responded that the officer had no right to ask her that. Now, once Peoria Police arrived there, Councilwoman Van Auken did not want to deal with the Bradley Police anymore, so even though Chief Bear of the Bradley Police Department arrived on scene to quell the disturbance. Now, while Councilwoman Van Auken while she refused to leave the scene, she actually refused to leave the scene unless Peoria Police wrote a citation to the members of Sigma Nu. Peoria Police complied with Van Auken's demand and issued a ticket to Caleb Matheny, the president. The only person to receive a ticket out of this entire incident was Caleb Matheny. Van Auken did not receive a ticket, Andrew Rand did not receive a ticket, Sid Ruckriegel did not receive a ticket. All three presumably broke the law, but they were not cited for it. A person that did not break the law was cited for it, and that person was Caleb Matheny. Now I'm going to discuss the purposes of this lawsuit. Sigma Nu plans on donating any money it receives from this lawsuit, if it receives any money, to their charity, the Children's Hospital of Illinois. Our firm, Owens and Wickenhauser, has taken this case pro bono. We're doing it for free. This lawsuit is not a political issue, it's a justice issue. So what is it about? It's about the outrageous abuse of power by a public official and the underrepresentation of college students in this city. They are constituents too.